What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart, along with the altcoin market, as we get ready to kick off the end of the week, heading into the weekend, with some volatile price action last night as a bunch of news broke out of conflict. Is probably the safe words to use. You probably are seeing it in the news by now. But Bitcoin went slamming back down into the lows. The Dow Jones had fallen 550 points last night, back down to these supports, along with a big fall in the S&P, taking it down to the 100-day moving average. As gold spiked back above $2,400, the DXY spiked to 106.34. And we saw lots of altcoins take big whipsaws back down to the downside. Then, like magic this morning, back up goes the altcoin market. Back down comes the DXY. Back up goes the United States stock market, now with a giant lower shadow wick. Gold with a large upper shadow wick, now back down to 2377. And while all that conflict that happened overnight now being downplayed as it wasn't a big deal, nothing more really to worry about. And we get our nice bounce over here in the market as everything continues to hold. We didn't see any of the altcoins going and setting new lows. Everything has still continued to hold. After what we've been watching here now, after a completed ABC correction has taken place in here, now we're starting to see this market try to fight its way back up. And so that's the thing that I'm going to be watching for throughout the weekend, so we can kind of discuss that. First things first, I'll shift us over here to the daily time frame just to take a quick look over here at it. These are definitely structures that we've seen, and I missed these in 2020 and 2021. We didn't really get any action like this in 2021, where we just get real clean ABC corrections to happen in here, but we finally are getting them here in 2024, and I'm hoping that continues. I know right now in this moment, it may not sound like that, but in the end, they actually become much more easier to read than when you're living in the thick of the moment of this kind of stuff and this kind of stuff. So as of right now, we have a decent recovery happening in here. And now throughout the weekend is to see that we can continue it. So I'm going to talk about two different things in here. One, this still just seems to be the most likely. It seems to be that we've already went down, slammed our lows, liquidated the market. We had back-to-back absolute giant liquidations for a 2-day event that was the biggest liquidation and margin removal of the market that we've had in all of history. But as we try to show evidence of a reversal actually happening in here, and this is total 3, so this is the altcoin market excluding Ethereum and excluding USDT and USDC. It'll look the same on all the other charts. I'm just preferring to use this one. But throughout the weekend, the thing will be to look to get through this area. Really just right here in the retracement levels to ensure that we can get through all of here and get the escape out of here. And I know that sounds intuitive. It sounds like, well, duh, we just want price to go up. But it really gives more of a confirmation, because if we're able to get out of there, it's likely going to continue going higher. And it doesn't mean we're actually ready to escape just yet. These structures tend to pull back down again and come back down into these lows again before we can then start to really waddle our way up. But where we are right now, still not 100% out of the clear just yet. Give you kind of an example on this to show that we need to kind of break trend in here. And that's why I had these overlaid in there, that we need to kind of escape from the first set of retracement levels. Again, I find this highly unlikely, which is how the prices are behaving. But when you go down and slam into the lows, the thing that is still just always the worry right in here is whether or not it has to find one more low before then moving on. So looking a little closer at that, you get the first initial firing off of the lows and then kind of a creep sideways and a flush down. An example of that on the DXY right in here for the first half of 2023. You fall, have the first bounce, and then you flush the new low, and then that's it. That's what we're talking about here, the flushing for one final low, and then that's it. Another example, the bottom of Bitcoin back in 2022, right? First off the bounce, then the roll, and then there's one more flush. But what is that? That's the bottom. But that does come in here with one final flush. That's what we're talking about right in here to make sure we can get through there and that there's not that final flush to come out. It's not as though it was dramatic, right? While the narrative was dramatic at the time, it's not as though prices went significantly lower than this moment. Also, the reaction off these lows was not as aggressive as the quick reaction that we've had right in here. But as long as we're in this area and we haven't gone on to set that new little high yet, it's something to just still continue to keep in my mind, for me at least, that it could be there. However, I just really doubt it, but I do know that we live in this exact particular moment to know that that is still a potential. So as the market sits right here, just kind of keeping an eye on it to see if there's going to be that last flush that ends up happening in there. So as we head into the weekend, just keeping our eyes on it. Can it get through here? Can it get out? If it does, that massively increases the likelihood that's not coming back. However, we would still see a correction pull it right back down into these levels. And if we do end up seeing that before the bounce ends up happening, I'll be watching this one with a laser eye and likely going very heavy on buying that dip. Now, things to keep in mind of what we've witnessed here in the last couple of days. We get first liquidation that happens. Then what happens? We get second liquidation right back down to the support levels. What comes with it? A narrative. What came last night? A narrative. These types of narratives don't come at tops. It is always the YOLO excitement. We're going to the moon. The narratives are wonderful. The narratives are great at the top when people should be selling. And then at the bottoms, what happens? Horrible, terrible, worrisome narratives. So if there is a worrisome narrative, you do you. I'm going to probably just ignore it. But again, I'm not fully convinced it's going to happen because we do these types of things. You have your massive liquidations. It's normal to hang out down in here before things can actually recover. And things to look at, things like moving averages in here is just where we actually are at. We're sitting on top of the 100-day moving average for the market. When you go through historical precedent of what happens during bull markets, we don't typically go below the 100-day moving average and closing below it. We're typically going to be holding on top of it, even when we're getting back up closer to these retracement levels like we were back in 2020. We can go wick them and hang out on them, but we typically don't go below. It's not until really we get into the tops actually coming in and then we start cracking them. I'm sure many of you heard it yesterday. Brad Garlinghouse over there on Twitter retweeting himself from being on Fox Business saying that we're going to a $5 trillion market cap this year. By all means, bring it on. So what do standard corrections look like when you're moving up in a manner like that? Just like what we've actually seen. And typically, we don't actually go to set new lows after that type of liquidation. So not fully convinced that we have to, but when we're living in the thick of this one particular moment, I'm going to show this stuff to you. It's similar to just kind of sitting in this moment and confirming that it's not going to be like this as we are right here, right now. So we need to see more come out of here to not see that there's going to be one more flush to take place. If a flush does take place, you kind of get an idea of what ends up happening in there. But again, really on top of a support level in here. These things typically end up holding in here, and we typically don't go all the way down to the 200-day moving average in the event that we actually are still in a bull. You can look at others, which gives us more historical context than total 3 without USDT or USDC, but we look at others, which is everything excluding the top 10. Certainly very common to come back down here to the 100-day moving average. However, not the 2. And so as we can see, total 2, total 3, total, while total is on top of a support. So we'll be looking for some confirmations throughout the weekend. And I can tell you, it feels better to be on this side than on the other side. The last month and a half was rough up there, being a worry wart with us back at the retracement levels. But now that we've done a very clear corrective, aggressive structure in here, it feels good to be back on the other side. If throughout the weekend we get a nice pop up in here, the sigh of relief can take place. Doesn't mean we are breaking out. Still likely means more correcting to happen in here. But if we do, pretty darn good sign. That's it, no more. However, if there's still that last flush to happen in here, like we see, get prepared for people to be panicking and screaming and yelling over there on Twitter. The sky is falling. The game is over. We're never coming back. You know how it goes. And don't be surprised if there's a narrative attached to it to give them justifications and reasons why. Structurally, it's still possible without the confirmation happening here just yet. as we do just sit in something like that right now. So I'm assuming by the time we get back on Monday, this thing will have resolved itself and we'll be able to move forward from there. I'm treating this as an opportunity to put money into the market. You do whatever you want. You take your own risks. I treated the last month and a half as an opportunity to take money out of the market. Now there's discounts galore and I'm eating them up. So when we come back on Monday to look at all this stuff, if we do end up having our move here, we'll know what we'll be talking about in the time moving forward. So you can kind of prepare for that. If that move ends up coming, essentially a week or two of being like, hey guys, it looks like we're probably going to end up falling and it's going to be rough for a minute, right? In the event that that flush does come, being one of those things of being like, okay, here we go. Bullhorns on. Let's go. Recovery. But we just have to wait for it to happen. Again, in standard corrections like this, when you do have that big of a liquidation, it tends to favor the moving up behavior in that we actually do just confirm it. But in the event that that is our case and we just have to come into that bull flag one more time, I'll be there with open arms to go and grab it. But that opportunity may not come as Bitcoin still just continues to hold like we've been watching all week. And well, if Brad Garlinghouse is correct on what he thinks we're going to be doing by the end of the year, what would that look like? Probably something pretty dang epic. But we've got to get through these moments first. Then we've got to get through the retracement levels. And so we have processes ahead of us first and things that have to happen first. And right now, we're just trying to get through the first one, then the next one, and then we all hold hands and sing Kumbaya if we're able to get out. But through the weekend, as we try to see if we can get a confirmation or if things fall apart, how am I treating it? I never tell you guys what to do, but I'll tell you when I'm doing stuff. And a lot of times the crowd doesn't like it. For the last month and a half, every day, every video, every live stream, building a cash position, crowd doesn't like it. You guys see when I get things wrong. You see when I get things right. I try not to play the hedge game where I say, if this happens, then we go up. If this happens, then we go down. And I'm not involved. And see, I'm right because that's how I'm positioned. No, you know exactly what I'm doing. I bought the dip, posted it live as I was doing it there with the altcoin market there and others at 227 billion. It was right into the bull flag. Then on the video that I posted over there on Monday, we talked about it, what I had already posted over there on Twitter as we had bounced back up. Risk managing, setting stops. So my entries have already been made. Now, how am I handling something like this? Up or down, sideways? What's going to end up happening? It's pretty simple. At this point now, I'm just shifting my stops up. From what were lower, they're now going to shift higher. And that way, if we do end up having that, I will get stopped earlier, but then try to grab that second dip right back down in there. That likely should have been our low, especially with it coming with a news catalyst again. So if we do crack through there at this point, right, it's probably that we're doing it. So rather than everything stopping down in here, it'll stop a little bit higher to be able to grab down here. And so that's how I'm treating this scenario, right? When you call up, down, sideways, left, right, A, B, start, well, how are you handling it, right? Sniped the bottom, risk managing, stops below. Now we have the conformational structure. Either we're going to get up here and we're going out, or this thing's going to play out. So there's no need to keep my stops down here anymore. I'm shifting them up a little bit higher in order to not get ravished by that with those entries, similarly to being like right over here. So keep an eye on it throughout the weekend. Again, I'm optimistic. This is all bottoming structure stuff. It's very different from what happens for the last month and a half, where it's all the worry and the concerns of ABC corrections starting to form. The crowd is euphoric. The crowd is wild. Meme coin mania. Now the air has been deflated out of the balloon. The sentiment is very different. And again, here I am back. Optimistic on the other side, which is typically the case. So we're just trying to find that bottom in there, looking for the confirmations of them to come in, and then trying to risk manage those entries that were down there at the lows for it. So fingers crossed they come in and the confirmations are there throughout the weekend. And to be frank with you, normally I'm not setting a bunch of stop losses. You guys know it. I usually play multi-year stuff. It's not so much day trading. Day trading really isn't my jam. It's exhausting to have to manage everything like this so aggressively. But the reality of this is this was a knife catch. This was trying to catch the literal bottom of an actual liquidation happening in here. When we're playing knife catches, you can get sliced up really bad when you're trying to catch a knife. And so it's really just this particular circumstances. If we were in like a standard accumulation and things were just grinding along, the story would be different, or if the position was different, right? but this was a knife catch. And that's why I'm treating it so much more cautiously. And really, it's probably me just being a little bit greedy and wanting to try to get an extra 10% or so in here out of these coins. But on the big picture, if Mr. Brad Garlinghouse is correct, and if this structure is correct, that this is nothing more than an ABC correction, we may have an exciting couple of months ahead of us. So let's get through this moment, and hopefully by next week, we're all in the clear. Oh, and happy Bitcoin block reward halving day, as the block reward halving will take place later today. But all right, that's going to be it for this one. Remember, guys, this is all bottom hunting stuff now. No more screaming of caution up at the retracement levels. Now we're all trying to figure out the complications of the bottom coming in down in here after the big liquidations. Optimism returning, looking for things to start trying to move their way up and how those structures could end up looking. So we'll keep at it. We'll see if we get some confirmations coming throughout the weekend. I'll try to keep updated over there on Twitter if anything does end up playing out. Otherwise, I wish you all an absolutely wonderful weekend, and I want to thank you so much for watching. If you'd like, you could check out my newsletter over here on Substack. It's at blockchainbacker.substack.com. There was a new one just put out there a few days ago talking all about the contract deployment, user activity levels that are happening over there on Base. It's a fascinating thing. It's likely where the trend is heading. I see it nonstop on Twitter now. If you're not up to date on it, I fill you in on it here. You can find a link down here in the description of this video to blockchainbacker.substack.com. There's also a link in here to bcbacker.com, where there's over 40 videos and 11 hours of content in here teaching you how to set up your own charts and indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. Also talking about the historical behavior of the cryptocurrency market, the ebbs and flows, along with teaching you stuff like Elliott wave theory. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully we get some price action to emerge, some volatility to arrive and give us an answer. I'll be keeping my eyes closely attached to it, and we'll check in on it soon. But all right, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.